When Joe Biden and Democrats were able to pass their $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill, there was some news that tax reform might be Joe Biden's next big legislative goal. And we talked last week about what is expected to be in that tax reform plan. We talked with Bill Scher about the political feasibility, remembering that there are many Democrats who don't necessarily support all aspects of what Joe Biden wants to do from the standpoint of tax reform. But now it looks like it may not actually be tax reform that Joe Biden and his administration tackle next. There's a report from the Associated Press that it may be a very large, a $3 trillion, I guess we're calling it an infrastructure package, but it's really like an infrastructure schools and families package. And Joe Biden reportedly Monday met with Senate Democrats to start laying the groundwork for what would be a spending package that would deal with many aspects of American infrastructure that are sadly outdated. We've needed like real, I don't mean you drive by and that stretch of road near your house is under construction for 2 years and it's never really clear what they're doing, but eventually it gets done. And now, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about major repair and replacement of significant American infrastructure. We're talking about new development of roads. We're talking about refreshing hospital infrastructure, green energy systems, a lot of these different things. And reportedly, this is exactly what Joe Biden is looking at next. $3 trillion in total. And it will include money for schools. It will include money for families. And it would be divided up. Could be a third, a third, a third. Again, this is all early, but it looks like it could be about $1 trillion for roads, bridges, rail lines, electrical vehicle charging stations, and a cellular network. And the idea would be start pushing towards clean energy, but do it in an economically competitive way, which is what we've been saying for all this time. The idea is not necessarily to take things out of the market, but it's let's have fair markets where we're not subsidizing the wrong things. The second piece of it, which is the school piece, would include investments in workers by providing free community college, universal pre-K, pre-kindergarten, and paid family leave. Another aspect that we've been talking about for a while, which many on the right see as, quote, handouts. Remember, it's our tax money that's then being used for programs. To call them handouts is wrong fundamentally, but it also ignores that when you're doing something that allows people to be more economically productive, it should fit under the umbrella of what the so-called free enterprise people would also want. Now, that $3 trillion number is obviously a number that is going to lead to the predictable and regular refrains from the right. And I think that hopefully Democrats will realize we're not going to get votes from Republicans anyway. So let's not care about the fact that they're going to talk about we don't have the money. Where's the money going to come from, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to do that regardless. They would do it if it was $2 trillion. They did it with $800 billion when it was Barack Obama's spending program. They're going to do it regardless. So hopefully that's not something that is going to be affecting the way that Democrats go about this. And fundamentally, as I said, when Donald Trump lost, and remember, we knew that on November 8th of 2020. We didn't have to wait until January 20th to know that. I said these 2 years will be a test in two ways. One, can Republicans obstruct everything and still get themselves reelected? The answer may be yes. And we'll actually talk later today about how even though every Republican voted against COVID stimulus a few weeks ago, 1/3 of Republican voters think that their Republican elected officials voted for COVID stimulus. So they may be able to obstruct and not get punished by their voters because their voters are so clueless. That's number one. But number two, it's a test of what can you get done when you have a 2-year period with the White House, the House, and the Senate. We've seen these periods before. The infrastructure spending needs to happen. It's been necessary for decades. we are able to count on 0 Republican senators to vote for it. Their efforts will be obstruction because ultimately they are cult members. They turned over the party to Donald Trump when it became clear that Trump had the momentum. And even if privately they were opposed to what Trump was doing, they stood aside, I guess, because they wanted to get their judges done or whatever the case may be. And I know that one of the talking points they may come up with, and unfortunately, this one resonates even with some in my audience, will be $3 trillion for all of this different stuff. Why can't we just separate it out and do individual bills, up and down votes on each of these elements? And then it would be clearer what people are in favor of or against, because you can always have Republicans saying, well, I'm not against doing some of this stuff, but we can't do all of it because of item number 1 and item number 7 and 20. Those are pork or those are bad or whatever the case may be. What you have to remember is that bills typically need 60 votes, but you can get around that through the budget reconciliation process. But you're limited in how many times you can use that process. Once we know, and we know, that Republicans will not actually negotiate in good faith, they'll find, if you change how you do the bill, they'll find new ways to oppose it. What you have to understand is that reconciliation and doing this with 50 votes plus Kamala is probably the only way you get it done. If you separate this out into 4 or 8 or 12 different bills, Republicans will then just find ways to delay each individual bill. They might use different justifications or the same one. The only way you really have a shot at getting this done is by doing it all together in what's called an omnibus bill and passing it through budget reconciliation. So ultimately, they would say, Republicans, oh, break it up and then we'll do individual votes on the merits of each one of these. Then they would just obstruct and use delay tactics to make sure that as few of those things actually get a vote in the first place, and then they would still vote against it in the end. So I do think it's probably more politically feasible right now for Biden to do this than the tax stuff. That's a political feasibility calculation. I think either way, he's going to be doing it with literally 0 Republican support. If you think some Republicans might vote for such a spending bill, infrastructure bill, let me know. And specifically, let me know who, because I just don't see it. Today's episode is sponsored by Blue Chew, a unique online service delivering the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis in a chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. And they're giving my audience an entire month's supply for free. Take a short quiz on the Blue Chew website. A licensed doctor approves your prescription, and the medication goes right to your home in a discreet package. No driving to the doctor's office, having a possibly awkward conversation, waiting in line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew replaces the entire process with a few clicks and way less expensive. And all of Blue Chew's tablets are made in the United States. So if you think you could benefit from an extra boost of confidence, go to bluechew.com. The link is under this video, and they'll give you an entire month's supply for free when you use promo code Pakman. Just pay $5 for shipping.